They arrived with dreams of tea, double-decker buses, and a little royal sparkle to brighten their lives. They pictured themselves sipping a pint in a cozy pub, perhaps chatting with locals about football, politics, or the weather. What they didn't expect was the polite yet firm escort to the airport, because, in a twist of fate that felt like a scene from a sitcom, some Americans quickly discovered that being deported from the UK is not just a bureaucratic process, it's an emotional roller coaster wrapped in irony, cultural clash, and, occasionally, chaos. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. The first shock usually comes as soon as the letters arrive, or, in some cases, the knocking at the door. You are required to leave the United Kingdom immediately. For someone who believed they could wander freely across the globe, this line carries the weight of disbelief. Americans, accustomed to being the center of global attention, suddenly find themselves subject to rules, regulations, and the infallible logic of British immigration. And as anyone who's ever seen an American react to the unexpected knows, disbelief quickly escalates to dramatics. The drama starts on the flight, or sometimes even earlier. Social media erupts with live tweets, videos, and panicked Instagram stories. "They can't do this," screams one, while another posts a selfie with a boarding pass and a cheeky caption, "Evicted from the empire, but make it fashion." In the UK, officials remain calm, professional, and unfazed by the viral spectacle. But for Americans, every bureaucratic procedure becomes a personal affront, a clash of expectations versus reality that is almost Shakespearean in its irony. Of course, many deportations are avoidable. Visa overstays, misunderstandings about work permits, or simple ignorance of local laws can all turn a dream vacation into a frantic journey to the departure gate. Americans often assume that charm, humor, or sheer enthusiasm can overcome official protocol. In the UK, rules are rules, and polite insistence carries far more weight than passion or outrage. The contrast could not be starker. One side is flustered, dramatic, and convinced of injustice. The other is measured, courteous, and utterly unimpressed. The cultural clash adds layers of humor and frustration. Americans, accustomed to friendly bureaucracy and customer service designed to delight, are frequently flabbergasted by the quiet efficiency of UK officials. There is no drama, no shouting, no televised apology, just a simple explanation, a stamped document, and an insistence on compliance. To an American visitor, this might feel cold, even cruel, but in reality, it is simply the British way, matter-of-fact, polite, and surprisingly effective. Then comes the viral component. Social media amplifies the spectacle, turning ordinary deportations into national conversations. Clips of Americans arguing with officials, packing luggage in the departure lounge, or lamenting lost opportunities go viral in hours. Memes appear, hashtags trend, and suddenly, a routine immigration procedure becomes a worldwide talking point. Meanwhile, the British public observes with quiet amusement, commenting wryly, "They thought they could just stroll in. Bless them." The humor is often unintentional. Americans overreacting to delays, queues, and paperwork provide an ongoing source of entertainment. Complaints about unfair treatment are met with understatement and sarcasm, a perfectly British response. It's not about cruelty, it's about perspective. Life, in Britain, proceeds according to rules that are often invisible to outsiders. When those rules are enforced, the surprise is spectacular, and the reactions are, to a British eye, almost theater. There's also the emotional toll. Being deported, even politely, is humiliating and disorienting. Travelers must rearrange flights, cancel plans, and explain their situation repeatedly. For some, it's a lesson in humility. For others, a source of outrage that fuels viral videos and impassioned blog posts. Americans, so used to taking control of situations, find themselves powerless, guided only by the quiet authority of British procedure. And in that powerlessness, the comedy and drama intensify. Irony thrives in these moments. Americans who assumed the UK would welcome them with open arms discover that rules exist, policies are enforced, and the romantic vision of travel can collide spectacularly with reality. Meanwhile, British audiences watch with knowing amusement, recognizing the cultural gap, a world where respect for law, understated authority, and polite firmness trumps theatrical protest and emotional appeal. Yet, in the chaos, there are moments of insight. Many deported Americans reflect on their experience with a mixture of embarrassment and revelation. The intercity infants, they learn the importance of preparation, respect for local laws, and cultural awareness. They come to understand that global expectations are not universal, and that charm and passion do not always override procedure. It's a harsh lesson, wrapped in comedy, drama, and a touch of poetic justice. By the time the travelers board their flight home, social media posts continue to circulate. Friends and family marvel at the viral clips, sharing memes, laughing at overreactions, and questioning how anyone could be so unprepared. The Americans themselves are quieter now, reflecting on what happened, occasionally chuckling at their own overreactions. For the British audience, it is a mixture of humor, irony, and quiet satisfaction, a reminder that not every visitor understands the rules of the land, and that reality often clashes with expectation in spectacular fashion. And so the story concludes with a lesson wrapped in drama, humor, and cultural reflection. Americans go crazy after being deported from the UK not because of cruelty, injustice, or mismanagement, but because of assumptions, misunderstandings, and the sudden collision of expectation with polite, methodical authority. In the end, it is both amusing and instructive, a tale of cultural misalignment, viral spectacle, and the timeless lesson that even the most confident traveler can be humbled by a little British efficiency. But the story doesn't end at the departure gate. For many Americans, the chaos continues long after their plane touches down. Social media becomes a stage for post-deportation outrage, commentary, and, of course, memes. Friends, family, and complete strangers weigh in. How could they do this? We didn't even know visas mattered. The irony, of course, is that while they scream online, the UK officials who carried out the deportation remain blissfully indifferent, calmly enforcing the rules that Americans so dramatically misjudged. Cultural clashes reach a new level when Americans try to explain their experiences. They are met with polite confusion, gentle teasing, and the occasional eyebrow raise from British audiences. The same quirks that frustrated them, the queues, the paperwork, the calm authority, are now points of pride and amusement for locals. Americans complain about bureaucracy, while Brits nod knowingly, rules are rules, nothing personal. And suddenly, what felt like injustice transforms into comedy, a theatrical performance in which they play the bewildered outsider. Then comes reflection. Many deported visitors begin to realize their assumptions were flawed. Travel is not just a right, it is a privilege that comes with responsibilities. Charm, optimism, or sheer persistence cannot override rules. The experience forces them to confront a truth they hadn't considered. The world does not operate according to American expectations. Some even admit, grudgingly, that there is something admirably orderly about a system that functions quietly, efficiently, and without fanfare. The lesson is sharp, ironic, and delivered with impeccable British timing. By the time these travelers recount their story to friends or vlog about it online, a curious transformation has taken place. The outrage subsides, replaced by anecdotes filled with humor, disbelief, and admiration for the very system that sent them packing. Tweets and TikToks that initially showcased panic now highlight irony. I came for fish and chips, stayed for the deportation drama. In a strange way, the chaos becomes a badge of honor, a story of cultural misalignment, dramatic flair, and ultimately, a lesson in humility. And so the saga of Americans going crazy after being deported from the UK serves as more than just entertainment. It is a commentary on expectations versus reality, on the clash of cultures, and on the quiet power of British bureaucracy. For viewers, it is both amusing and enlightening, a reminder that rules are universal, patience is a virtue, and sometimes, the funniest lessons are the ones you never saw coming. By the time the dust settles, Americans have returned home. Viral posts continue to circulate, and British audiences are left with the satisfaction of watching orderly, polite, and perfectly efficient procedures unfold, while outsiders learned, in spectacular fashion, that the world doesn't bend to anyone's assumptions. And in the end, one lesson stands out. In the UK, even chaos can be polite, and even disappointment can be quietly, hilariously educational.